Good evening.
Everywhere I go on this island, it seems to me I find degeneracy.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, see.
We have a bargain.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Do you feel the pain? Oh, it's the pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
His entire work consists of violence, all the time. Obsessed with the issue of violence. Mayhem, gouging out of eyes, autopsies on the stage.
Come. It is time to keep your appointment.
Hello to everyone live who kept your appointment. You're here, you're on time, and it is episode 115 of Double Feature Horror Show. We have some interesting starts for this. I'll throw a few random little bits in before we start touching on Creepshow, the 1982 cult classic by George Romero. I'll give people a little moment to roll in. It's good to see many of the regulars in chat. Good to see you. And channel members as well rocking up. Always lovely seeing you. Dr. Prepper, hello. The Alabastard, hello there. We got anyone else? I know Creepshow is a popular one. And I know people have been wanting me to cover it for a while. So I'm happy to make that happen. Even though we've managed to bump this one a couple of times, unfortunately. One time it was laryngitis. The last time it was the Twilight Zone movie just took precedence. But we are here and we are covering Creepshow and it's going to be grand. But I'm not doing it solo. With me is our Horror Anthology specialist, Murgoot. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. Greetings, everybody. And welcome to the show. Unfortunately, that crime guy can't make it today. So I'm taking his place.
I think in true rap tradition, he would want you to say, he's a little under the weather, so I'm taking his place. What? That's TCG with an AK to his face. Anyway, but he's not here. He won't go for it. And I'll be accused of proving Evala right. So maybe we won't go down that road too much.
No.
Yes, sad to say that due to work commitments, TCG was yanked away. Unfortunately, second week in a row, it turns out that TCG gets pulled off as much as Tom Harwood at a Tory party conference. But it cannot be helped, folks. It cannot be helped. That's going to be a really niche reference for people, isn't it? Oh, we still got the man. That's good. That's good. I'll also remember to say hi to everyone on the replay. There's a thing coming up in a second, replay viewers. Good to see you. That I want you to put your responses in the comments for. Because I want to test something. But first, if you're interested in a little behind the scenes thing, I think I worked out a bit of a mystery today. I worked out why this channel is absolutely allergic to the algo. What is instructing Neil Mohan to put the stiletto on me and keep me down? It's not some of the more high capsaicin topics that I cover occasionally. I realize that a lot of people are coming to this stream thinking it is the full movie and being really annoyed when it's not the full movie, when I've not just uploaded a full film onto YouTube. Can you imagine, Murgoot?
Enough said about censorship.
I checked it out. I was like, people are turning up. They're watching the first 2 seconds and then saying, leave me comments like, WTF? This isn't the movie? What are you doing? So I've changed the title this week. You may have noticed it's reviewing Creepshow. So I'm hoping that keeps everyone off. What do you reckon? That's going to stop people turning up, thinking this is full pirating.
Yeah, this is YouTube, not Twitch.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, you know what? I think we can go live. We'll go straight to our live TCG reaction from Twitch. How's it going? Oh no, TCG. Oh no, bro. We'll come back to him. I couldn't resist it.
Poor guy's still working.
I know. You know what though? We love our TCG, don't we, folks? If he were here, he would be shilling like a maestro, but he can't be, so we will do it for him. TCG got out a bit of a beauty this week. It's one of my favorite videos of his. It is his video on Chris Benoit. I know there's a whole bunch of wrestling fans here. You're probably quite aware of this. I thought I knew about this case, but I only had the one angle on it. TCG has covered it in some depth. He's done a really good job. I found it a little bit moving. Did you actually check it out, Murgoot?
Yeah, I was fully aware of Chris Benoit. I'm very aware of concussion therapy. I've been through it myself, and it's unfortunate that more people, including Chris Benoit, weren't more aware of it. With everything he was doing with concussions on top of it, yeah. Because it can cause radical changes. Somebody needs to do like a brain fart. Somebody needs to do a charity stream for TBIs, concussions treatment. They really do.
Yeah. I didn't expect to find it as tragic as it was. So just kudos TCG. You did a really good job with that one. So folks, he would chill it if he were here live with us on the stream. But you give it a watch. I fully recommend it. Go to TCG's channel and give his Chris Benoit video a watch. He also had an absolute nightmare rendering it, so the support be appreciated. Also say hi Dom, hi Yiz, who is going to be on next week, I'm delighted to say. And Baldwin from Bethune, good to see you, I think. Unfamiliar name. Sorry if I haven't caught you before. Anyway, before we really get into this, something popped up for me that I was curious about. And I need you for this chat. I need you on this one. And people watching on the replay, I want you to do this on the comments. I had one of, you know how very rarely, once in a blue moon, maybe, it's 1,000,000 to 1 chance it might occur. But sometimes on Twitter, there's an ad. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those on Twitter.
Oh, I get clickbait ads all the time. Yeah. I've got a quick block.
I need it. Well, I fell for it. I clicked on one of those links. I couldn't help myself because it was a little terrible listicle called the 10 best horror films you've never heard of. And I thought, oh, hang on, that's right up my street. This is an ad that's actually relevant to me. And it was this. And I just got a little curious because I thought, how many of these have I seen and how many has chat seen? Because it's saying you've never heard of, but I think that's probably pitched to normies. And I'd like to think, we've been doing this a couple of years now, so I get the feeling that maybe chat is a higher caliber of horror fan. And I just thought I'd check that out. So chat, I'm going to go through these. I'm just going to scroll through and I want you to tell me how many of the 10 you've seen. Maybe just score out of 10 and maybe the ones you haven't seen. Just let me know. So this first one, Pontypool, we talked a bit before the show. I think that it is kind of obscure, but it was talked about by quite a few of the horror channels. So I think there's a good chance that people have seen this, even if it's unusual, with kind of an interesting Lovecraftian twist to it. You know, a linguistic infection going round. How relevant for current times. Then Lake Mungo, a superior found footage movie. Highly recommended, I would say. Highly recommended. And Murgoot, you I think you said you hadn't heard of this one?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
So that's one definitely to look up.
Yeah. Shudder has it, which is how I learned of it. But really quite good. It's very meta as well. Then Noroi the Curse. I talked about this one in my video on pro and anti-abortion messages and horror films. Another found footage.
That one's very good.
Yeah.
From what I remember, it's been about a decade since I've seen it, but I remember it being very good.
Yeah. I loved how much it didn't do the jump scares, how it would just put something creepy in camera and wait for you to notice. Yeah. The Canal. The Canal, Irish film, interesting, controversial subject matter, some really disgusting visuals, and quite a few nods to The Shining that I appreciated. I'm seeing the chat come in. All right. I'll go through these a bit quicker. The Wailing. Now, this has been all over Netflix. I know a lot of you abstain from it for very good reasons. But I'm thinking that one's not super obscure. So The Wailing, Korean kind of zombie movie, not really. But then A Tale of Two Sisters. Chat, we've covered this on stream. Harrian hated it. Harrian absolutely hated this one. Terrible, shocking affair. The Skin I Live In, very memorable. I haven't actually seen this one. I'll put my hands up.
I haven't seen it either, but like I was telling you earlier, it was rather meme worthy on certain channels when it first came out.
Yeah, interesting. I gather it's kind of a Frankenstein thing. Maybe brings in a little bit of Eyes Without a Face, Les Yeux Sans Visage. Now, chat, I need 100% of from you on this. I think most of you will have seen this, and if not, you'll have certainly heard it. This is our go-to one. This is what we started our horror anthology season with. So I know you guys will know Dead of Night. Kill List. If you don't know this one, we are covering it next month. I've got Harry from Lotus Eaters back. He's coming on for Kill List. He said he wants us to cover this one. And frankly, Harry's got great taste, so we will go with that one. Also,
good movie.
Yeah, really good movie. Really good. It's got an interesting sort of plot crossover with a Serbian movie, which came out, I believe, the same year or the year before. I get confused whether a Serbian movie came out before A Human Centipede Part 2 or the other way round. But yeah, that's from Ben Wheatley, a director who, yes, I think got a bit broken by 2016. And then this one, The Surprise, number 10, Seventh Victim. I've never heard of this before. So this one actually caught me out. And I'm very intrigued. You know, I see something from the 40s. I want to go see. And this is one you hadn't heard of either, right, Murgoot?
No, I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
Let's...
So I'm just going to scroll back again. We'll see what the 10 are, and then I want to see how chat's doing. So Pontypool, Lake Mungo, Noroi the Curse, The Canal, The Wailing, Tale of Two Sisters, Skin I Live In, Dead of Night, Kill List, and The Seventh Victim. How are we doing, chat? Let's see. So Pontypool has been recognised, and years knew of it. That's good. Okay, quite a lot of people have seen The Curse, so well done, Noroi. Canal, not as well known. Fair enough. It's on Shudder, so possibly hasn't been widely seen, but I'd quite rate it, to be honest. And yeah, Yiz, I'm with you. It's on the one day. I don't really like Almodovar films, so it's not something I've been rushing to watch, but I'm curious about it. Yeah, looking through. Yes, Dr. Prepper, Dead of Night, obscure, maybe to the normie, not to us. We're, after a few years of this, we're cut above. And also, it's one of my obsessions, so fair enough. This might be representative. Heard of all except two. Yes. I imagine a lot of us are there, to be honest. I think a lot of us will be there. My guess is going to be people are around sort of 6 or 7. So I'll wait for that. People watching on the replay, let me know. Put a comment down now. Yes, the algo will thank you, and I will thank you for pleasing the algo. But I'm also curious. So I think I do sort of joke about this channel being something of an education in horror, but there's a certain truth to this. I think we will actually have a Scream style scary movie quiz soon. I think we're going to. Anyway, I'm looking forward to what you say about that. So there we go. All right. With that all done, that little preamble, I'm just going to be interested in it. But I will now move us on. I'm going to be really interested in the comments on that. I'm going to be checking. And I'll also say, if you haven't heard of these, if you haven't seen them, we're not trying to be too elitist about this here. And if I direct you onto films that you would never have looked at, then I'm doing my job right. But for the moment, we will be talking about one specific film. We're going to be talking about Creepshow, because it is part of the ongoing topic of this year. We will dip in and out of it 1 month on, 1 month off, looking at the evolution of the Horror Anthology. I still think I'm going to get people coming in expecting this to be the whole Creepshow movie, you know. It hurts me. It hurts me, Murgoot.
You just have to remind them that we're on YouTube, not on Twitch. And
see. We should do like last week, where we just play game shows for 50 minutes. Imagine how annoyed they were. Yeah, John Garcia's got it right. Now we've complained about it. Let's just go. We've got past the censors.
Let's not get your channel nuked. I have too much fun with it.
All right. Well, a tiny bit of the production history. This is really early on in the Stephen King adaptation arc. You know, your earliest is coming in around 1976 with our Carrie. So this is still pretty early. They've done his big hitters. He's had a certain amount of aplomb and plaudits for Carrie, for The Shining, and people are branching out. So now they're looking at all his material, and so they start reaching into his short story collection. And George Lucas picks this up. I'm going to read.
Romero.
Oh, sorry, I said George Lucas, didn't I?
Yes.
You know what it is? It's the goofy transition slides. Only George Lucas would love those, the page turn transitions between scenes.
Oh, bad proper, no biscuit. Romero was a big fan of the old EC comics that had Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, other such lovely additions to the genre, and so would Stephen King, and you could tell this is a love letter to the old EC comics.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So you know what? We're going to get some of those up. So something I think people don't talk about much is the things that influence Creepshow, but also the unexpected weird influences that Creepshow had. So for a start, yeah, the EC comics are a major feature. So I'm just going to show you a couple of those now. So look at this style. And it does. Oof, I love it. Look at that. Look at that. Oh. It feels kind of golden age to me. I know I'd upset Connor with the use of the term golden age there.
Well,
Wait, no,
it is
1950s are golden age, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Mm.
And it's the golden age. The American Comics Code still hasn't come into force until the end VC Comics run. And that's when they ended up going bankrupt due to their fighting with judges over things. And the Comics Code hasn't come in. They gleefully showed the gore and the horror and the twists into sci-fi horror, and Tales from the Crypt, 1972, with Joan Collins, I believe, is the first anthology movie based off of EC Comics.
It was. And do you remember who produced it? Don't worry.
Not Hammer, Amicus.
Yes.
Amicus Studio.
Yes, correct. It was Amicus, indeed. Now, you'll look at it. If you watch that, you might be surprised because the Amicus production sticks very close to these. Oh, my mouse is on screen. Lovely. And the Crypt Keeper that you see in that movie looks like this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, that's a little odd. Because when I see Tales from the Crypt, I don't expect something that looks like that. I expect my Crypt Keeper to look a little more like, I expect
more rotted.
I expect him to look like this, like the Creep. Yeah?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying here is Creepshow comes out adapting the EC comics, basically taking a lot of inspiration from Tales from the Crypt. When Tales from the Crypt is made into an anthology series in the 90s, or possibly 1989, don't check me on that, folks. We're going to cover it in depth.
Early 90s.
There we go, on HBO. They don't use the Crypt Keeper like in the comics or the Amicus production. They make their Crypt Keeper look like the Creep from Creepshow. And incidentally, Creepshow not only has that impact on Tales from the Crypt, the series, Creepshow launches its own series, Tales from the Dark Side. It goes from movie to TV anthology. And George Romero produces that. That runs for about 4 seasons.
And it's still played in heavy syndication up through the 90s. And that led to a bunch more like the revival of Tales from the Crypt, Monsters, the more serialized Friday the 13th, the series, which involves
antique shop, isn't it?
Antique shop that's trying to collect all the cursed items that were sold out of it. With Louise Roby. Wow. No simp.
Bonk.
Yeah, I deserved that one. Big crush in the 80s.
Yeah, they couldn't call the TV series Creepshow because of licensing issues, So they use the name Tales from the Dark Side. And then Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt. And ultimately, Creepshow 2 kind of bombed. But Tales from the Dark Side spawned its own movie, which should really kind of be Creepshow 3. But because Creepshow 2 bombed, I think, and things had moved on, it became Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, which is one of my faves. And we're not going to... I don't know if we're going to get to cover it this year. The Horror Anthology coverage will continue until morale improves. What I'm trying to get at here is Creepshow is incredibly influential in direct ways and in indirect ways. Now I'm going to read from you, I'm going to read to you a little bit from Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies. And he's talking about how some of this came together. So this is Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies. This is a new edition, but I'm reading from the old section, the pre-1988 section. So he's saying that George Romero, after the success of Dawn of the Dead, wanted to branch out and do something a bit more unusual, something more artistic, and he made a film with Ed Harris and Tom Savini, the special effects maestro. And it was a film called Night Riders, which was about a crowd of Arthurian bike freaks who stage motorized jousts at medieval fairs. I really want to watch this.
Oh, it's been at least 30 years since I watched it. And it's classic schlock cinema. It's so bad it's good. It's horrible, but it's hilarious at the same time.
I mean, I'm curious, if only for Tom Savini, who I find very charming. Anyway, so continuing with Kim Newman's Nightmare Movies. Night Rider's lack of box office and critical acceptance probably drove Romero to Creepshow, an entertainment that uses the frame of 1950s horror comics as an end in itself rather than as a means towards the grisly trenchancy of the Living Dead films. Written by Stephen King, who also appears as a retarded farmer. Oh, Kim! Oh, disavow! Disavow! A retarded farmer turned into a walking weed by a mysterious meteor, Creepshow is an omnibus of slight horror stories. The episodes tend to set up interesting situations, but fail to come up with the necessary funny/horrible punchlines. Fair so far, do you reckon?
Yeah. Some good, some bad, and we'll talk about them once we get to the vignettes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. However, Romero has fun producing the celluloid equivalent of a comic with animated splash panels, think bubbles, Charles Atlas ads, mail order voodoo doll offers, and a decaying host to introduce each tale with cackling blurbs. A cast of semi-name actors are spurred into providing appropriately caricatured, unpleasant performances that sit nicely against the garish primary colour backgrounds. Leslie Nielsen chuckles as he watches the tide come in over his buried wife and her lover via cable television. E.G. Marshall is a bullying, fastidious multimillionaire persecuted by creeping cockroaches in his pristine penthouse, and Adrienne Barbeau is incredibly vulgar and embarrassing as a faculty wife whose hubby dreams of doing her in. Although frequently funny, Creepshow is an evident relaxation which inevitably disappoints after Romero's run of probing, innovative films, and a second issue, Creepshow 2, 1987, directed by Romero cinematographer Michael Gornick, is a fumbling disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just read to the end of the paragraph. It's quite short just because it's kind of funny for me. Among the properties the director has committed himself to are Monkey Shines, 1988, a thriller about a deranged spider monkey with near-human intelligence, Apartment Living, a comic horror about an apartment which eats people, London Renters, Feel Seen, and 2 Stephen King properties, The Stand and Pet Sematary. Oof, boys. Oof. Oof.
Well, Pet Cemetery is very good.
It is, of course,
The
very
original miniseries is actually very good. It holds up well.
I
The
believe it.
The second miniseries doesn't hold up as well as the other one. Rob Lowe does a good performance in that one.
Yeah, the miniseries I think ended up being directed by the chap who went on to direct Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, and it was also produced by our good friend Richard P. Rubenstein, who caused Romero a bit of legal trouble in the fight over the use of the phrase "living dead." You may remember this, folks, when we talked about Return of the Living Dead. Yes, Richard P. Rubenstein, intimately involved with Romero Productions and later a heck of a lot of Stephen King ones. And I think Creepshow is probably how Rubenstein ended up moving over to the Stephen King side of things. So a little bit of production history for you there. I'm seeing there's not much Stephen King appreciation in the chat. I cannot think of what caused that at all.
Oh, no. It's one, he's always been a jerk.
You know what? We should get Stephen King up for this while we're talking about him. And here we go. I've got one where he's Lou Ferrigno. Where is he? Oh no! There we go. There we go. Half King, half Lou Ferrigno. How'd you like that, Murgoot?
Yeah, that's Stephen King during his cocaine-fueled years. His best writing came out of his drug-fueled years. And then he quit cold turkey, and his writing is, well, off and on. Let's just say that. Some are very good. Gerald's Game and Cell. And then others are just utter and complete disasters.
And unfortunately, when he wants to be on message, it ends up very awkward. He's someone who, you often don't follow your idols on Twitter. He's one of the guys who I think was a bit broken by 2016 and is very much a current thing appreciator. And I saw a very interesting case of this. I'm going to have to apologize for you. I'm going to have to say a bad word in this. So apologies to Neil Mohan and apologies to YouTube. But I was reading his more scholarly book about the horror genre, Danse Macabre, which I really like. And it was written in 1981. That is 1 year before Creepshow came out. And he talks a lot about the early days of horror and some really interesting influences. So he talks about Lovecraft a fair amount, right?
Of course.
But before that, he also talks about Alfred Hitchcock and he talks about Britain. And he takes a while to really slag Britain off. And he says, he has a go at us, and basically the line is, Britain where there are such charming habits as packy bashing. And I'm like, okay, understand why you don't like that. But interestingly, he goes out of his way to randomly attack Britain for a fairly, unpleasant, but not exactly epidemic thing in comparison to the type of troubles America has had in that vein. He goes out of his way to randomly slag us off for that out of nowhere, completely unrelated to anything. And then he's talking about his praise for Lovecraft. And not a dicky bird of Lovecraft's thoughts on racial integration or matters of that. And you just get the feeling that at the time, that wasn't the current thing,
Yeah, well, It's like he never read Horror Red Hook.
Yeah, he just or Shadow over Innsmouth. You just
Yeah.
that talking point had not been included in his software update, so he didn't. So it's just my good old boy Howard. Anyway, just an interesting thing about Stephen King that I noticed that line was so weird. It just stood out to me. Like, why would you do that? Anyway, sorry, folks. Minor detour. So yeah, this is Romero doing the adaptation, Stephen King writing, Stephen King being brought in to also play a character, which I quite enjoyed. And I'll also point out that it's his son, Joe, now Joe Hill is his author's name, but Joe King, you can understand why it's a different author's name, is playing the little lad in the wraparound story. Yeah. And we should also point, obviously, we're talking about the evolution of Horror Anthology, so I'm just going to wrap this up before we go into the actual talking about the stories. For those of you who are tracking the evolution, what do we have here? We have a wraparound story that's quite strong, even if the stories themselves totally isolated from each other, slotted into the wraparound story, which is these are stories from within the Creepshow comic that this kid has been told he isn't to read because it's pure filth, pure smut, unworthy stuff. Unlike, the classic stuff like Todd Browning's Dracula from 1932, which is just on the post behind. You're also seeing the story references. They are inspired by EC Comics, but the source is far more contemporary. So this is another thing we've seen in the evolution. We're not digging back into Lovecraft. We're not digging back into Poe. We're not digging back into Algernon Blackwood. We're not even doing Matheson or Beaumont. We're doing Stephen King. We're doing really current stuff now. And yes, as to your question about HB's marriage, yes, he did indeed marry someone from their background.
One.
Yes. She was quite good for him in a way. She tried to take him into the city, but he didn't take to it, basically, and left and returned to Providence. So he couldn't do the urban life. I believe she ran a shoe store, as we covered on one of our streams. Anyway, so those are some of the hallmarks that we've talked about for the evolution of horror. That has been me yapping for a while. So thank you, Murgoot. You're a patient man, and I appreciate it. I should ask the lead-in question. It's going to be an obvious one, but Murgoot, had you heard of Creepshow?
I watched it in the theater when it came out. I'm an old fart.
I have to ask, Yeah, it's a big name, isn't it? Stephen King and George Romero. It is going to be... I know, it's very well known here as well. Yes, I'm not going to be surprised. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the... do you want to just go over the wraparound story quickly, and then we'll get into the vignettes?
Certainly. Billy Hopkins, played by Joe King, is getting disciplined. That's the polite way of saying yelled at and threatened by his father, Stan, played by character actor Tom Atkins.
Beloved to any fans of Halloween 3? I know there's a couple of you out there. And yeah, I think I've hopefully got the slap marks on Joe's face there.
Yeah. It's, he's yelling about, I don't want this trash, referring to the Creepshow comic, and throws it in the trash. And he leaves the room, and Billy starts cursing him, telling the camera that he wants his father to rot in hell. And he hears knocking on the window, and the creep, the host of this series, is knocking on the window and shows the kid the comic in the trash. And it sets up, the pages blow and leads up to Father's Day.
Oh yes. I've got to say, I've saved a few of them, but these are some gorgeous shots. There are so many of them. It's something I don't think gets brought up much, but this is kind of gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's lovely lighting work. We'll go into Father's Day. I'm just going to make a little mental note because I want to look up who did the. I should remember who did the cinematography on this, because whoever did it, absolutely wonderful. Murgoot, could I appeal to you to do the quick summary for people of Father's Day? I'm assuming most of you did your horror homework, but just in case you didn't, I know there's a bunch of people who are happy to hear a review without watching the film. I know I do that as well. 5-hour review. I'm not going to watch a 90-minute film, though. Heck no.
Aunt Sylvia Grantham is hosting a Father's Day dinner with her niece and nephew and her niece's husband. And they're talking about the rumors of Great Aunt Bedelia's having murdered her father, Nathan Grantham, an old bootlegger, for doing that. And they talk about how, Aunt Bedelia is supposed to be showing up and she'll be here right at 6 on the dot. And it cuts to Aunt Bedelia driving down the road in her Rolls Royce. And Aunt Bedelia gets on the property and goes to the family's funeral plot. And she goes to Nathan's grave and starts reminiscing about how and why she killed him. And because he was very abusive, he had a stroke and got even more abusive of her. And how on his last Father's Day, the day he died, she lost patience with him because he was screaming about, "I want my cake. I need my cake. Where's my cake? I want my cake." And instead of bringing the cake, which she's currently fixing out, she grabs the stone ashtray and beats him over the head with it. And while she's reminiscing at the graveyard, Nathan crawls up from the grave rotting. And I want my cake, and he kills her. And it swaps back to the house, and Ed Harris,
very young Ed Harris,
very, very poor disco dancer, I must say. They're dancing around, and then it's 7 o'clock. Where's Aunt Bedelia? And so he gets sent out to look for Aunt Bedelia in the graveyard. He finds Nathan's tomb and finds the bottle of booze that Aunt Bedelia was drinking. He takes a drink and starts noticing that the gravestone is moving and moving. And he turns around, and old Nathan's standing there, and he falls over backwards into the unsettled grave. And then Aunt Bedelia's dead body rolls over onto him, and Old Nathan telekinetically grabs the tombstone and drops it on Ed Harris's head.
That was something that really stood out to me on this watch. Like the zombie, of course, yeah, standard, but the fact that he can use telekinesis,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really unusual addition.
And it really,
if I can just interrupt you, I'll just point out a little thing about this. So this is an unusual design. I think it looks best here. The big challenge when you cover a skeleton, and Army of Darkness fans, you'll be familiar with this. The hardest thing to do in the effect is to take away. Whereas it's much easier to add things. You know, you can far easier to give someone an extra arm or two for Prince Goro appreciators, but far harder to take an arm off. You know, you have to awkwardly tuck it away. So in this one, where you have a skeleton where you expect there to be very little flesh on there, that's an effects challenge. They often will use someone who's incredibly skinny, ideally someone with Marfan syndrome. There are a couple of actors who are famous for this. Javier Botet has that. Doug Jones, I believe, is just very skinny. You'll be familiar with Doug Jones from a number of roles.
Who's the guy who played the alien in Alien?
I want to say Kevin Peter Anderson, but I'm wrong. His first name is Kevin. If someone wants to Google that, the guy who's just like a random economist who was.
He also did Pumpkinhead.
Yes, and The Predator.
Yep.
Same guy, same random dude who was approached in a cafe in London. In this case, it's a chunky skeleton when you see it walking around, which is a bit awkward. Like this looks amazing because the dirt is all packed in. It's gorgeous. When he stands up, that's more of a challenge. And I thought, is that a bit of a weakness? And I've got a bit of a clue about that. Excuse me. So the skeleton, Nathan Granthon's corpse, is played by John Amplas. John Amplas is a chunky boyo and always was, which is why the skeleton is chunky. You might not know him, but he is basically, I think, the Jack Nance of the George Romero world. Mm-hmm. That is an actor that the director worked with early on when he had no money, and then has a really loyal connection to, which is quite sweet. Mm-hmm. So John Amplas was there early on. He did the title role in the very little scene Martin by Romero, and then got some little work in Dawn of the Dead. And so in Creepshow, he's brought in just to be this. So it's quite I think it's a sort of Jack Nance scenario, the way Lynch would bring Nance in just for little jobs to sort of keep him on the Actors Union healthcare. I'm not suggesting Amplas is in that situation, but it reminded me of that a little bit.
Well, to continue on with the story, Nathan staggers into the mansion, and he staggers through and finds Sylvia. I want my cake, and twists her head around and pulls her head off. And then brother and sister Cass and him are wandering through the house looking for Sylvia, and he steps out of the kitchen with Sylvia's head on a platter covered with icing. I got my cake. And flashed the four-color panel. And in the graphic novel that came out with the movie, it's and he blew out their candles. In the movie, it doesn't show it, but it's alluded to in the graphic novel that he kills them too.
Yeah, I love how unimpressed the actress is with the iced wig. But We talked about the influence of EC Comics on this, but we should absolutely mention, where is it? I'm going to get it. There we are. Right. Look at this panel. Look at this coloring. Okay. We've got to talk about another influence on Creepshow, especially the style. Oh, the NREAB has got there.
Yep.
The NREAB got there. What am I about to show, guys? What am I about to show? This.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Yes. 100% Romero is referencing Suspiria, and by broader extension, the whole Giallo movement, which is very well known for its, color gels over the lighting to get this gorgeous effect. So yeah, amazing. And Joe's not wrong. Bit of reference to Salome. So that will be if you don't remember that. There was actually a play written about that by, I believe, Oscar Wilde, wasn't it? That's the story of after John the Baptist's imprisonment, the wife of the king, or rather the
daughter of the
daughter
king.
of the. I thought it was a
daughter
daughter
of King Herod.
I think wasn't the implication that it was kind of an incestuous thing, but she persuades him with a dance to give her whatever she wants, and she does the mother's bidding, which is to ask for John the Baptist's head.
Mm-hmm.
I may be mangling that, folks. We need Luke on for this. We need Luke. Sorry, Lambda. I'll go back to the image. There we go. But yes, Suspiria, a major influence. It certainly helps get the EC comic look, but I think it also adds so much more to it and gives it that Giallo vibe that I really love.
The top down and then cocked at an angle just adds to the.
Oh yes, Dutch angle.
Dutch angle. 4-color, full splash page for the EC Comics.
I hadn't seen it for a couple of years, and I thought, oh yeah, I quite like this one, but when I rewatched, I just found this charming and captivating, and I just remembered how gorgeous this movie is. The cinematographer is Michael Gornick, who directed Creepshow 2, and he and Romero get some really gorgeous shots in this movie. I just think this looks lovely. And in terms of the story itself, it's simple, but it's strong. You know,
It is. And it's one of the few that it drags a little, but not that much, because the setup is there. There's always something going on. It's just not playing for time.
Yeah, exactly. That will be sort of a recurring issue as we go. But that is Father's Day. I think it's a very strong one. It's for everything that Kim Newman criticized it for lacking punchlines. This is a perfectly delivered punchline. It's a strong segment. And I like to think of how annoyed the actress was having to sit there with her head stuck through a tray with the icing on her. I'm just picturing Tom Savini just splatting the stuff all over her and her trying to wash icing out of her hair. Oh, it's a lovely image. I will move us on in the interest of time because there are 5 stories in this, which I need to point out is unusual. Amicus tended to do larger numbers, but typically 3 is your standard, 4 at a pinch. For this to do 5 and a wraparound, it's a heck of a lot, and it's something we'll end up discussing. So I'll move us through a bit briskly. Story number 2, The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, which is actually, I think I got the title wrong on that. Let me get you a screen cap up. We won't do the Lou Ferrigno Stephen King crossover like we did. I got it right. Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill, adapting the story Weeds. And as you pointed out, Murgoot, adapting something else as well.
Yeah, it's his homage to Color Out of Space, and The short story isn't very good, in my opinion, and neither is this, really. It's kind of slapdash. But that's just my opinion.
No, it's fair enough. I think it's one of those ones that is the Stephen King style works well on the page because so much of the story is incredibly internal, like an internal world that the character imagines. So you get dialogues with between the character and someone he's imagining speaking to, and then there'll be like another character, and there's just like all this internal dialogue. But out in the real world, nothing happens, and that's hard to translate to the screen. If anyone, I mean, I say anyone, but it's going to be Mike Flanagan. When Mike Flanagan gets to adapting, was it Song of Susanna? It's been a while, guys. Book 6 of The Dark Tower. Have fun with that, especially have fun not getting cancelled. But there was some. Can you imagine, Murgoot? Can you imagine trying to do Odetta? Oh.
Yeah, okay.
Good luck. Good luck. Anyway, there was some kind of nifty touches in this, though. I should probably say what happens. I mean, you've said it's color out of space, which should give people pretty much everything they need to know. So here we go. Geordie Verrill is a hick, someone so much less educated than Stephen King. And a meteor crashes in Geordie's backyard. Geordie goes and investigates, touches it, breaks it out, pours water over it to cool it down, breaks it open. He's imagining a life of riches that he's going to get when he takes his meteor up to the university, and the learned professor pays him handsomely. But then when he breaks it, he sees himself being basically chased out, not even given 10 cents for the broken meteor. That's the kind of thing where we get a very literal adaptation of the King story, like literally seeing inside the character's head, which feels more faithful to how Stephen King writes a story. But Geordie notices...
Like the way they use the comic book panels for that.
Yes.
That was a nice touch.
Well, I think I've got tell you what, I'll go back to just another example from later on of where we've got the panel. The film is absolutely full of these, by the way. Just a complete comic panel cut, you know. The verisimilitude, it's in shatters, people. It's in tatters, it's torn away. It's not happening. There's no verisimilitude. He notices after touching the meteor that something is growing on his hand, and then he notices that it's kind of growing up his back as well. It starts to spread. He gets very thirsty. He doesn't draw attention to it at first, but you see him drinking and drinking and drinking. It's almost like, well, plants need water. They need hydration. Interesting. He then imagines his dad talking to him. You'll notice that the father here, and I believe also the priest on TV and the doctor in the university, are all played by the same guy, the improbably named Bingo O'Malley. Do you think that might be a stage name?
A little bit.
What do you reckon?
Yeah.
No, O'Malley never revealed his birth name. Quite common in Hollywood. He was also in Knight Riders, I notice.
Yeah, one thing, as far as I know, Stephen King improv'd I'm So Itchy because he was allergic to the makeup that they were putting on him, and he was so itchy because of it.
Oh.
And he was taking so many antihistamines to fight the allergic reaction. The fact that he got through that, I could just imagine.
Yeah. Oh dear. Poor guy. Many such cases of actors extremely allergic to their special effects makeup. Yeah, I liked this touch of basically everyone he seeks approval for is played by the actor who plays his dad. This isn't a deep story, but that's a nice touch, and I liked it. It's something that elevates it a little bit more. And also, I like seeing the old pro wrestling on his TV. Yeah, his dad's telling him not to take it off. Basically, the path of this story is very predictable. The weeds spread, it takes over. He eventually shoots himself.
And the
as
news
he's utterly
broadcaster
yes.
comes out and
please.
says, from Portland, Maine, says, "Oh, we're going to get lots of rain and cause the crops to grow," and you just see the yard just blooming.
Spreading all over. Also, folks, drink obligatory Castle Rock sign. We had to get it in there. Oh, also, hey Connor, good to see you, man. You, your parents showed you Creepshow when you were 10. Yeah, it's a classic. I got Aliens when I was 11, I think, or was I 9 or something? It's a time-honored ritual of ignoring the ignoring the age certificate. Parents, they will decide. I'd say in this one, it's kind of harmless, to be honest. There's not really the maliciousness. It's too kind of goofy for that. But yeah, we're set up for this thing of the weeds taking over. I'll point out that this story gets cut out of quite a few international versions. So looking into this, Creepshow is unusually long at 2 hours, basically exactly 2 hours. It's 1 hour 58 before the credits start rolling. And so that's kind of long. I mentioned 5 long stories, and they're not short. They aren't zippy. So they start trimming. So Geordie Verrill's thing gets clipped out of initially the Italian release in a lot of them. I think Father's Day is in all of them. The Spanish version has clipped out Something to Tide You Over in the Crate, the 3rd and 4th stories. Germany cut out a crate on an initial release of this. And the final story, the 5th one, They're Creeping Up on You, has been cut out of a few cable broadcasts, and nothing of value was lost. Yeah, not a fan. I might as well say it now. One of my problems I had with the 5th one, aside from the slight insidious agenda of it, is it's basically the same story as this. Just it's too much the thing of being slowly overtaken and slowly overcome by an infection. It was just hitting the same beats too often.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Okay. How about this? Dr. Prepper with an interesting take. I might be reading into it, but I thought, hey, there's no overreaching on this channel, Dr. Prepper. We love our reaches. But I thought there was a hint of a theme about the wilderness taking over if you watch TV all day and don't actively maintain the civilization around you. Interesting one. Interesting one. There's a thing of Geordie goes back and he only wants to hand the thing over prestige. He's not written as a ambitious character. He's not written as an aspirational character. He's a guy who wants to sit. He's basically a redneck who wants to just slump down on his lazy boy. I hope I got that right. Chug his beer and watch the wrestling. He's basically vegetating. Like we have couch potatoes. He basically does become a vegetable. So maybe there is something in there. What do you reckon, Murgoot?
Yeah, that's pretty dead on. My favorite part is when it starts getting to him and he starts hunting through the cabinets and brings out the bottle of vodka and the pitcher of orange juice and mixes them, stirs the orange juice with the vodka bottle and starts drinking it down and just drops everything on the floor.
I'm going to put money on it that was not prop vodka.
Not with Romero and King on the set.
No. Yeah. Hey, what did they use for cocaine in Scarface?
I don't know.
I forgot the director for a second. Help me out. Who directed the 80s Scarface? Why can I not remember it? Michael Mann? Anyway, the director was asked what they used for it, and he said, I forget. Read into that what you will. Someone's going to put it in chat, and I'm going to kick myself for not remembering the director.
Brian De Palma.
Yeah, I deserve that. I deserve that. Terrible. I think in this part, my problem is King is picking an extremely safe target. I don't like it. I don't like it as much.
No.
I mean, in fairness, he puts up a caricature of the university elite, but at the same time, it's seen through the eyes of someone who's a very safe target. Oh, I'm getting absolutely spanked by chat here. 3 in a row, De Palma, De Palma, De Palma. Oh. If it was only 2, I could have said the guy behind Body Double got me double bodied, but hey, I was too slow for it. Okay. Yeah, so this, oh no, it's a 4th now. Oh dear. I deserve it, folks. Names slip my mind. Okay. So there's a little bit in here, but I think it's ultimately quite shallow. King would, of course, return to the topic of, the inspiration of Color Out of Space very directly when he wrote the Tommyknockers. That's a much more direct copy and much more long form. But yeah.
And one of his worst out of the 80s. God, I remember reading that and being so disappointed.
It's one of those ones that he doesn't remember writing, unfortunately. So yeah, I end up not having a particularly sort of, how can I, King, having written this, we should remember, goes for the safe characters, the ones he can write about, and he doesn't show particular insight into, I would say, Geordie Verrill. So this one, I don't have as much to say to it. I think I pointed out some of the bits that were quite nice, but otherwise it does leave me quite cold. Did you have any other thoughts on this one?
It's a very poor ripoff of Color Out of Space. It's my least favorite out of all the vignettes.
Yeah. Fair play. I will move on. Folks, I will be asking you to rank them by the end. A ranking will be appreciated. I wonder if we can predict anything. I'm going to start story 3 with a lovely shot. It's simple, but it's very effective.
The late, great Leslie Nielsen is the villain.
Yes. It's more likely than you think. I mean, how far off was he from Airplane at this point?
I don't know. Let's
do a little check. We do a little check, folk. It's cool. We do a little check. We'll go for his... I have to go for a separate article for the filmography. Okay. So folks will remember that Leslie Nielsen started as a serious character actor before he found his sort of niche in comedy.
1980.
1980. So he was only a year after that. And in 1980, he also did Prom Night with Jamie Lee Curtis. So he's doing a horror as well. Yes. Okay. So not far off that before he goes fully into comedy. We get him being a villain, but being kind of a hammy villain, which kind of works. He brings a lot of that comic performance into this. But the story for this, very simple. Leslie Nielsen's character, of course, I don't remember names, folks. You know this. Leslie Nielsen knows that Ted Danson is sleeping with his wife. He lures him to the beach, and then once he's got him on the beach, threatens him. There is a a hole dug in the sand. It is a grave, open grave. He makes Danson get down into it. Next, he's covered up to the neck. Do I have a nice image of that? I do. And he's probably, he gets to see his lover, Leslie Nielsen's wife. And he will get to see her. He will get to see her via the magic of television. Now, I'm going to nerd out a bit at this point, folks, in a way that you were probably not expecting or probably hoping that I wouldn't do. This is we get a sign very early on of the prestige of Leslie Nielsen's character, because remember, this is early 80s. It's 1982, probably shot 1981, and he has a VCR. Now, the video cassette recorder there was quite a luxury item at that point. It had only been released in America in 1976. And at the time, the uptake was very low. So it was, I believe, under 20% for households without children. It was around 26% for households that did have children. Now, by 1985, when Blockbuster was founded, uptake in households that had children was 44%, and it was 29% for regular households. But that still shows you that the VCR was a luxury item at this time, so you get a feeling of how wealthy and prestigious Leslie Nielsen's character is.
Yeah. In 1981, I remember, because we bought our VCR then, the reason we didn't get a Betamax, VHSs were selling for $450, and Betamaxes, of course it's Sony, were selling for $1,000.
Yep.
And at that time, $1,000 was real money.
Murgoot, could you run the do you want to run that price through the inflation calculator just to try and give people a taste? Because this is, 400 sounds a lot now, but you got to remember, this is without the inflation. So something that we might be very surprised by, certainly I was surprised by when I was doing this. You can tell I've got my research coming in here. VHSs, when they're initially out around this period, they are going for about $80. And that's without the inflation. Okay? So these were in the early days.
$400 in 1981 is $1,342.61 today.
Ooh wee!
And
what was that number again, Murgoot?
$1,342.61. And $1,000 is $3,356.53.
Crikey. Yeah, so chat, I know I'm being really nerdy here, but this is a kind of cultural signal that we might not pick up on. The fact that he can take a VCR player and a TV to the beach and get them wrecked is telling you a lot about how much money he has to dispose of. Very similar, if you remember, Asylum and how much of a prestigious thing it was that they had a chest freezer. I've got my notes here, so just noting. So in 1985, Disney released Pinocchio for what would be $84 in today's money. And yeah, average price of a VHS in 1985, $140 in today's money. Yeah, you turned up for discussion. How, Murgoot, can you imagine the people who turned up for the full Creepshow movie and were bollocking on about VHS prices adjusted for inflation?
What they expect? It's proper horror show.
They are cattle, and I will treat them like cattle. Dr. Prepper, absolutely, it's a flex. This is a cultural reference that we wouldn't get. Did you see Geordie Verrill's TV? I know I haven't shown you a photo of it. Apologies. Geordie Verrill's TV was tiny. It wasn't in colour, and it had the small little viewing iris. So it looked, you can tell, Geordie's TV, cheap and crappy. This guy's TV,
13-inch
pretty
black
good.
and white. Yeah.
Mm.
I had one at that age sitting on my desk in my room.
Yeah. Quite the swagger. I also got really reminded, and I don't mean this to sound unkind. It's not an insult. I looked at Ted Danson here, buried up to his neck, and it really reminded me of Reanimator. Right, the evil doctor. He's just the head of the bowl. It's like Ted Danson has also got that E. Michael Jones physiognomy, and the same as the doctor in I can't remember, the guy who's not Dr. West. You know, folks. So this shot of just his head, with the way he looks, really reminded me of Reanimator, and it tickled me. Oh dear. There's also a shot from the TV that I was going to say was absolutely gorgeous before we go on with the rest of the story. Yes, after our little detour about VHS prices adjusted for inflation, I just want to point out I thought this looked gorgeous. You know? The way her hair is darkened, it looks kind of like blood, like she's in a pool of blood. It's very artistic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And this setup of Ted's buried up to his neck, watching her as he was told he would, seeing his fate. I really like this. I thought it's quite sadistic, but it's creative. Anyway, the inevitable happens. The tide comes in. The TV gets murked, which I was really pleased they showed, because I was about to get annoyed that the TV was still functioning. And luckily it goes off. And yes, Galen Ross. Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead. Nice pickup by John Cross. Not going to do too much, but it's nice to get her a bit of work. This shot, when he's underwater, again, we're getting that extreme colouring, Suspiria style that's only going to get stronger in this little shot here. But in case anyone doesn't know how that's done, that is his head in a tank, sticking through an aperture, and then they've just filled it up, and he's been given a little bit of air from a mask, which has been taken away afterwards so they can get this shot. Not the easiest thing to shoot, and that's why it has to be very close in for them to get this effect working. But I think it does the job. And then, having got his revenge, Leslie Nielsen goes back to enjoy what looked like a gin and soda. He was having a martini earlier, which I appreciated, and I'm quite jealous of.
In his modern house with cameras in every room.
He's got that Ozymandias screen set up, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've seen
Bond villain setup.
Joe, I absolutely would. Do you remember Night of the Hunter? The way, is it Shelley Winters looks, you know, she's drowning, the hair is just blowing. It looks so beautiful. Would you interrupt that? Would you actually stop that? Would you, are you going to censor art, Joe? Are you going to censor the art? Oh my gosh, you might. Are you a book burner, Joe? Exactly. You let that artistic drowning continue. Anyway. Oh dear. He gets back, and as is kind of inevitable, as he's enjoying the suffering, he's watching his videotapes. Oh, is it the Father's Day segment again? He's interrupted. The inevitable knocks on the door come, and he is greeted by the revenants of his now ex-wife and ex-bull. No more cooking for you. Yes. And we get a kind of lovely thing. They tell him he can't do anything. He can't shoot them dead. They're already dead. And I need to find my darn image. Oh dear.
The makeup wasn't great for this, but it was fairly cartoonish. But
Yeah. They've tried to make the skin sort of prune up, which I quite like. I don't know. I quite like this one. I also really like the extreme J horror colouring that we've got here.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. It's too much bloat, too much blue for how long they were dead. But that's just me.
Oh, it's fair enough. They also, like our other zombie in this, they can teleport. But who cares? It's fun. It's there for the scare. And do I have it? Oh, I do have it. The reaction is brilliant. I think the shot of his wife, Galen Ross, gets shot in the head, and I thought that looked really nice.
That was
also,
a good
oh, sorry, Murgoot, I cut you off.
Oh, no, that was a good effect.
Yeah, really nice close up. I sound so balanced, but they also do the old Lord of the Rings trick. Yes, we shot someone in the head, but the blood was not red. So it's all gravy. Classic trick to get around harsh ratings. And again, we get a lot of reaction images like this in Creepshow. This is my favorite one. We're getting it all. We get the Suspiria lighting, and we get the weird cartoon background. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this.
I will. Oh boy. Okay, I will be right back. I've got
No
to
worries.
cover up the garden. We've got a big rainstorm coming in.
Okay, no problem. You go out, and yeah, I think that's kind of everything on this. But if you come back and there's more, just pitch in. We'll catch up. It'll be all good. This needs to be a meme. I agree. There's a huge amount of meme potential in this. And frankly, if Uganda Knuckles can be a meme, this can be a meme. If we can have months of Here Come Dat Boy, then I think we can make a meme out of this. I want to see it happen, guys. I want to see it happen. All right. We'll go on to the next one. This is, I think, something of the standout to this. We're seeing some comments there. Essie, you liked the effect, and you've compared it to when Davy Jones is sponsoring your Revenge. I did get a feeling like it was a little bit like some of that Pirates of the Caribbean effect, wasn't it? I would call that a strength of it. I'd call that a strength. But have we got? Oh, yeah. See, Dat Boy fans, they're still around. They're still around. They can still picture him. Okay. Gosh. Yeah. I think Pirates of the Caribbean might have taken a little bit of inspiration from this, maybe. Could have done. But then how many drowned zombie ghosts do you know from films? I think it's like this and The Fog. You do not have many choices. Didn't The Fog also have Adrienne Barbeau in? I think it did. Wouldn't that be weird? Adrienne Barbeau here in the dress the colour of a Monzo debit card. I'm going to do a quick check and see if Adrienne Barbeau was actually in the Fog. I think she was. No, oh, she was. Yes, there we go. My memory is not that terrible. Oh, chat, I know you'll be owning me on this. I'm not living up to the expert label today, am I? Okay. We will go over this segment, which is called The Crate. This is where Tom Savini really gets to rise and shine. And in fact, hold on a second, folks. I need to get my light on because I want to read from one of our reference materials. This is one of the rare opportunities for me to read from Clive Barker's A to Z of Horror, which I rarely get to do because it's mostly useless. for what I want to cover. He's almost never talking about something I'm on. So this was, I think, Savini's first chance to build an animatronic for a story. And that animatronic I'm going to show you on screen right now. Here we go. Let's get that up there. So you can just enjoy it, enjoy the detail. Savini did effects work.
It's Fluffy.
Yay! Savini did effects work all the time. I've told you this story before, but I will tell you it again now because it was a while ago. On Friday the 13th, when he was brought on to Sean Cunningham's debut film, 1980, he basically moved into one of the cabins and he was cooking the latex effects molds in the oven that they had on set, just making everything impromptu. He's a whiz with that stuff, but with Fluffy, he got to be much more creative. Also, Murgoot, it is your cameo. I'm just going to read a little bit because there's some. I'm going to read you Clive Barker's introduction to his little section on Tom Savini, which is in the chapter P for Pain. Among special effects artists, Tom Savini holds a unique place. He's affectionately known as the Wizard of Gore, the man who put splatter on the map. In films like Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th, he makes us believe that carnage is real. And he should know. He's seen carnage for real. That will be referring to Savini's time as a war photographer in Vietnam. I will skip over a little bit because I like this early years of Savini stuff here. At the age of 14, Savini landed his first professional employment as part of a travelling act that performed horror and magic shows in movie theatres. The following year, he found a non-paying job creating the makeup for horror host Chilly Billy Cardell, and various monsters on Pittsburgh's television Chiller Theatre. Savini first met George Romero during his junior year in high school. Although the project they discussed never got made, Romero remembered him 3 years later when he was preparing Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Romero asked to see samples of his makeup skills, but before that could happen, Savini was called into the army and sent to Vietnam as a combat photographer. I've been called the King of Splatter and the King of Gore, Savini says, and that's because the severed heads or body parts have to be real to me. I have to get the same feeling that I had when I saw the real gore in Vietnam as a photographer. My job was to go in after the battle and photograph the damage to machines and people. I saw a lot of gore, the way the stuff really looks. I saw a lot of anatomically correct corpses. Oof. Is my pronunciation that bad? A wolf photographer? A war photographer? Oh dear. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cute. I also like, and I'm in awe of the fact that he was doing professional makeup effects when he was 14. Based and child labor pilled. Am I right, guys? Am I right?
Oh, I wish I knew what I wanted to do when I was 14. Hell, I still wish I knew what I wanted to do. But...
Oh, same. I will put that out there, folks. I doubt this will apply to anyone, but if you have no clue what you ever want to do, and maybe work is just something you do to get money so you can pay the endless tax that keeps going up, then you're far from alone. And you know what, chap? That's okay. That's okay. We'll all get through this together. All right. That was a weird little interview. I didn't actually... So basically what I wanted to say was this was a major step up from after proving himself with Romero and Dawn of the Dead, and also starting his little trend of getting an acting role in the film as well, because the guy has a lot of screen presence.
Oh, he's one of the garbage men in this, right?
He is indeed. I may not have it, but our producer friend who caused legal problems, Mr. oh, hang on, what was it again? Rubenstein. He has a cameo in the party as well. I might just try and get him, but yeah, this was a big step up. Basically, him earning his stripes and getting to do animatronics. Massive step up in the 80s. Right, I will get us back to that party scene. Murgoot, if you feel like it, would you like to take us through the plot? A quick summary, if you can, of The Crate.
Okay. The Crate starts with the janitor finding an old box, an old crate under the stairs. He drops a quarter and falls behind the grate covering under the stairs and finds a crate labeled Arctic Expedition 1834. He calls Professor Dexter Stanley, and they haul it out and bring it into the lab and start opening it. And they get it open. Professor Stanley steps away, and two claws pop out of the crate and drag the janitor in and start eating him. And Professor Stanley breaks down, runs, and tells one of his students what's going on, and the student doesn't believe him at first, and we should call the police, and they're useless for your imagination. It's come with me to the lab. Shows the lab, and there's blood everywhere, and shows him the crate, and the kid starts poking and prodding, and the claws grab him too and drag him into the crate and eat him.
I've got to interrupt you and just ask, this kid really reminded you of Denny from The Room, right?
Either Denny or the friend out of Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, no. What kind of crate, Johnny? What kind of crate? Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's
got a Tom Scott look to him, hasn't he? I'm here under the stairs, getting my face ripped open. Oh, dear. Tom Scott memes do not age well.
Here.
Sure. Hi, Maverick. Maverick, we have basically just started discussing the fourth story, The Crate. We've talked about Tom Savini's history. Enjoy it on the replay. But yes, you're in for the best story, and we're just kind of doing the recap here. This is a good catch. Dexter Stanley. It is a good Lovecraftian protagonist name. I'll also point out that on The Crate, it's directed to Mrs. Carpenter. It's a cheeky little nod to John Carpenter. But then also, so was this opening shot. I didn't talk about it quickly, but this is a cheeky nod to Halloween as well. There's a little bit of a heads up to John Carpenter in this movie. Sorry. We'll go back to the plot. Sorry, Murgoot.
Oh, no problem. And
so Denny was getting
Stanley,
up.
After that point, runs to Hal Holbrook's house. And they, Henry, after Billy leaves for the evening, he tells Henry everything. And one of the things that's been progressing through the story is, excuse the alliteration, but henpecked husband Henry has been imagining killing off Billy because she's such a shrew to him. And a plan comes together at that point. He leaves, Henry leaves Professor Stanley there drunk and runs to the lab and starts cleaning up. And when Billy gets home, she reads a note explaining that Professor Stanley had an affair with one of the students and assaulted her and come help me clean it up, and giving her all this blackmail, phony blackmail material. And she comes and he's all finished cleaning up, and it's Billy's like, well, where's the woman? And it's, come here, I'll show you under there. And she starts nagging him, and he starts laughing, and it's, what are you laughing at? Oh, nothing, and keeps laughing. And it's, you've gone hysterical. And he shows her, well, this is where she was put into, and shows her the gap under the thing, under the stairs. And it's, come on, wake up, move. Billy's like, what are you doing? And finally Fluffy appears and eats her. And
yeah, she is just haranguing him, and she's endless, and she's emasculating him, and
she's a huge shrew about it.
Yeah.
And Fluffy eats her, and he padlocks the crate and then cleans up and lets Dr. Stanley know. And then he goes and dumps the crate over the quarry's edge into the lake in the quarry. And he's talking to Dr. Stanley about it. It's, I disposed of it. I threw it in the lake. Fluffy breaks out underwater and goes to a 4-color panel of Fluffy's eyes coming up out of the water.
Yeah, that is our play of the crate. Now, I think it's fair to say this is the standout. It's certainly where a lot of the money went. But I find it absolutely bizarre that the German theatrical version of this didn't have the crate.
I don't know why, because it's the highlight of the movie.
I mean, possibly the gore was too much, but you can snip out a close-up of the gore. And German gore standards weren't... They're a little bit stricter, but they're not astoundingly stricter than ours. So it is a bit of an unusual one.
I don't know.
Possibly
again, the white ape and the Arctic edition. Yeah. Arctic Expedition, that's kind of an homage to one of Lovecraft's stories about the human-like white ape and miscegenation story that why can't I remember the name of it? But
I'm afraid it's lost on me as well. We've done 2 Lovecraft arcs, but there is a fair amount of Lovecraft, so...
Yeah, well, it's King. What do you expect with the short stories? He's famous for it.
I will say there's an interesting thing here about... If we're going to do a little reading, there's a deeper reading to this, I'd say. I mean, it's not particularly subtle, but the idea of... Because Hal is henpecked, he's emasculated, he's weakened. He's just having fantasies about being a man and being in charge, and it's built up in him. Basically, there's a, how can I say, there's a beast within, a savage, violent beast waiting to get out.
Oh, yeah.
And Fluffy could represent that. So, and he's repressed from the start. We see him mostly by the wife, but you could infer by the university environment.
His ideations of murder find an outlet in letting Fluffy have her.
Yeah. One of the things that really helps this segment, why it stands out, is it gives you some tension release early. Most of the others, it's quite a build up until the tension releasing violence. This one feels quicker, feels like it's got a better pace because it gives you these little humorous interludes where Hal just shoots the wife or stabs her because he can't take it anymore. And you see, actually, okay, it's just a fantasy, it's just an ideation for him. But that sort of bizarre fantasy, over the top thing, breaks everything up and makes this a much more lively story. It also adds a lot more humor. I did find it really weird, though. I'll take us off quickly so you can see it. Why is she in a Japanese schoolgirl uniform? What's going on here, guys? What is going on?
The 80s. The sailor's outfit is an 80s thing. And trust me, you really don't want to know. It's just one of those things that they did.
All right, I will move on from the Japanese schoolgirl uniform, but I've got to say I noticed it and I didn't enjoy it. I did really like this mustache though. This guy's mustache cracks me up. I love it. All right.
Yes, S.E. Romaine, Arthur German is the story.
Oh, well done.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. So taking this idea that basically Hal is oppressed, Fluffy is what happens. It's the suppressed natural male impulse, basically. He's been kept down. They're out of balance. It's out of whack, and it just builds up. So he's frustrated. He's already thinking about it, and it starts to leak out early. I mean, it's a bit of a tricky reading because it starts taking out people who aren't really connected to him, like the janitor didn't do anything, and he doesn't discover the crate himself, which makes the reading a bit awkward. Like if we were going to say that Fluffy here really is his sort of the suppressed side coming out, you'd kind of hope you would hope he would find the crate, that he would own it in some way, rather than be someone who kind of stumbles on it.
Well, he is the beta male who follows behind and picks up what others have left behind. And it is the perfect outlet for him. He's the one who sees it as the outlet.
Once Fluffy has been able to take out, especially his wife, he does gain a huge amount of confidence and competence that signals that things are back in alignment. He's more in touch with himself, which is why Fluffy is more controlled. He's able to sort of, having released it and put things back in order. And by back in order, I mean like horribly murdered his wife, he's then able to sort of literally put Fluffy back in the box. Wouldn't you like to see Jordan Peterson have a go at this story? He'd love it. He would absolutely love it. It's not as neat as it could be, but it's kind of in there. It's sort of in there. Incidentally, whilst I've said Fluffy is an animatronic, I should clarify out that it's basically the Fluffy head that is animatronic, and it's sitting upon a very crushed actor wearing a bodysuit. So it does help.
All the lips are articulated and the jaw's articulated. And
it looks good. And we do get our best gore. I don't think I can get away with showing the gore here. And it also would probably breach my no money shot rule. I like the big gore moments to be seen in context. Like you've got to earn them, you know.
Yeah.
But there is some gorgeous stuff, like classic. There's a really great thing where he chomps onto Denny's face, and there's moves back, and you just see really torn latex of all the teeth marks tearing his face apart. It's really good. It's Tom Savini being allowed to do what he does best and unleashing. So I appreciated that. And John Gross pointing out, yeah, Fluffy busts out at the end. That probably helps our reading, because we're saying that if Fluffy is that sort of natural masculine drive, it's always going to be in there. You can't kill it. It's inherent. It's innate. And these attempts to park it away, like park it in a, literally lock it away under a university, because you don't need it. You're in a university. You're more civilized. You're more cultured. You don't need this primitive barbarism. It will stay active. You can't get rid of it, which is
The
why
beast
Fluffy
never dies.
is not. Absolutely. Gorgeous. Absolutely. Dr. Brepper, I approve of the pun. Yeah, there's some great classic 80s nastiness here. All practical effects. We're a fan of it. Was there anything else you wanted to add on to the crate, Murgoot?
No, it's just my favorite of all the vignettes. I mean, it's the best of the lot. This one gets a 10 out of me. It's well plotted. It doesn't waste any time setting things up. There's always something active going on. It doesn't drag like Tides does. But
I'm really glad you said that. I'm really glad that you put that out there. I was going to say, yeah, the plot is more intricate in this one than any of the others, which really helps. It does move when you can see in a straight line, like you can with Father's Day, or especially Tides. Who just said it? Did someone else say it? Anyway, well, you and I agree on Tides really dragging. It's such a straight line that you want the pace to move quicker, whereas this one has twists and turns. Even if you can probably guess where it's going, it's not as direct as Hell discovers a crate, and you would know instantly where it goes. Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you on that.
So, okay.
We might stay on Super Nanny's good side here. Should we go for it? The last one.
They're creeping up on you.
Yes.
Oh.
The segment that is frequently cut out, and I can see why. Yeah, yes, the giallo lighting in that section is beautiful. It's almost like the film has built you up to it so it can do the really intense stuff in that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Okay, they're creeping up on you. I can do the synopsis for this if you want, as you did the crate. So pretty simply, your man here, I will get the name. So this is Upson Pratt, played by E.G. Marshall, is a horrible billionaire and an extremely safe target, living in a luxury apartment with a diverse bellhop who he makes sure to note, and with an extreme paranoia about infection. He doesn't care about his workers, and he's built up a huge resentment because he's basically human Scrooge McDuck with OCD about cleanliness. His decisions have led to the death of a worker, and so the worker's wife has basically snuck in to enable his pristine, ultra-clean, hygienic apartment to be infested with cockroaches, probably, or they're all in his head. We find out that he complains about insect invasions quite a lot in this scene where he discusses things with the person of color servant. What would you call not a bellhop? What
Concierge.
concierge? Thank you. Yeah, I'll get in quite a fun scene. This I felt was very Terry Gilliam. You know, really bizarre angles, really bizarre framing, like showing people's faces warped by the camera lens. So I liked this detail. And the concierge is having a whole lot of fun with him here. But basically, he's an unpleasant guy. He sees cockroaches everywhere. And the cockroaches just keep springing up out of nowhere, improbably. No matter what he does, they keep turning up. They take over. And you know where it's going as he shuts himself off into a really tight room. The cockroaches are under the bed, and he's mocked by the widow of his worker. We later see the cockroaches have invaded him, gone entirely internal, and they then rupture out as you see that the man is full of cockroaches. He's basically like a parasite himself. So that's kind of it. And I'm sure there's no under the surface intentions of this story whatsoever. We got an interesting choice here from John Garst. This was something I noticed, so that is a nice touch. I'll just read it for people who are just listening. YouTube actually classifies what we do here as a podcast automatically, which I find a bit bizarre, but fair play. So the comment, E.G. Marshall, who's playing Upton Pratt here, was a big radio guy. It's kind of an in-joke to have him communicating with the world through speakerphone. It's a nice bit of casting, yeah. Murgoot, what are your thoughts on this one?
Cockroaches squicked me out, so it was pretty effective on me. But one thing I did find interesting hunting through trivia is the cockroaches were the biggest single expense on the movie. They were 50 cents each, and they had to buy thousands of them.
Oh my. It's easily done when you say, hey, I want to fill the room with cockroaches. You can underestimate it. I'm reminded of Saw 2 when they said, I need a pit filled with syringes. And they bought a couple of thousand syringes, fake syringes. And then it was like, oh. So then they got 20,000. And they had basically all the staff just for hours just prepping these and chucking them in, swapping the needles for fake needles. And then they needed another 10,000. Yeah. And those syringes weren't wriggling around. Must have been harder for the Creepshow team.
Yeah. Whoever the animal wrangler was for it must... One, they have to have a strong stomach, and two, they got paid a lot.
Oh, big payday. I know they cheated to an extent, and for some of the big scenes, they had raisins. Like raisins and shriveled dates were used for cockroaches. So just like in a pile, like you won't see it. I was trying to pause and get a few images where I could see, but I think it's mostly where you see just a huge pile of cockroaches. You won't be able to pick it out.
Mm-hmm. As long as the top and the sides are moving, you're good.
I did not know that that sort of... Is it generally insects and creepy crawlies freak you out, Murgoot?
No, just cockroaches. They don't really freak me out anymore. Living in Florida, I got used to killing them in batch lots.
Oh.
Everywhere you go, if you leave food out somewhere, you're going to get roaches. And we kept a clean house, and I still had to bug bomb the place at least once a year.
Hmm.
But they really used to squick me out as a kid.
Interesting. For me, it's wasps. Wasps. I can't keep my cool around them. Instant fear. Terrified of them.
Wasps are evil.
Yeah. Yep. So, I was going to make a voting joke, and I'm not going to. We're moving past it. We're above it. Step over. Okay. Is it all in his head, Murgoot? What do you reckon?
I half and half. When I first watched it as a kid, I took it literally, and the more I've watched it a couple times this week. I think you might be right that it is in your head, or in his head, or it's out and out murder. I don't know which.
You do get the evidence of the concierge basically saying,
Bugs
you've
got
been
your
called
tongue?
in over and over again, you know?
Yeah. Bugs got your tongue?
Hmm. You know, I almost wondered if they moved it into that tiny room, which is more secure, because then the stack of cockroaches would look bigger.
Yeah.
That might make sense. I lean to it basically all being in his head as well.
And him just having a heart attack.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think King was a lot more about what's going on under the surface in this and didn't think about it too much. There are nice touches to it. The concierge is great. He's having so much fun with it. They got in a bunch of interesting cameos, uncredited, I should point out. Also, our favorite boy, Tom Atkins, who, of course, we love for The Fog and we love for Halloween 3, even though the morals of that are quite something, I tell you. So frankly, that film needs hitting with a horny stick. It does. He just like he hooks it. He meets up with this woman who's very buxom, very nubile, on a quest, and then he's married, but he has his way with her in the film. It's just like, this is totes cool. Don't worry about it, guys. Just enjoy the jiggling. It's very 80s. Anyway, so we have Ned Beatty, uncredited as the voice of Bob Bean. I gather Anne Muffley is uncredited. I don't know the name. We got Mark Tierney also as an uncredited voice. So those might be interesting. But Ned Beatty is a name that obviously stands out. Deliverance fans, you will know.
Ned Beatty had the hardest part.
Was he also in Network? It's late in the stream, guys. My brain goes by this point. Oh gosh, I've just seen he was in Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Goodness me. Oh, no. That won't do. All right. I should get off the Ned Beatty train here. All right. So, it's good performances. It's very lively.
Network.
He was. Oh, excellent. We get more of the Dutch angles. So, no complaints about any performance here. And I don't think I pick up a bad performance in this, to be honest. Even Stephen King's little son does a pretty good job with it.
Yeah.
But I think what's going on here, part of the problem is the set is so much more sterile and uninteresting. The story is very uncomplicated. It's very simple. And for me, it feels like a rerun of the Geordie Verrill. The commentary is also kind of quite mean-spirited, I would say.
Yeah. It is, but you shove in a very unsympathetic character. I mean, he's stereotype of the evil billionaire.
Mm.
this is coming out of stagflation and all the predecessor to all the chicanery with buyouts and mergers. It was, which actually started with all the bankruptcies in the late 70s, but we're not here for that.
I mean, some of that's a bit lost on me, I'm afraid. I mean, I do always see this kind of character, the rich businessman living high up in the tower, is I don't know, is that a safer target than the redneck? I don't know.
Yeah, the redneck was played sympathetically and for the fool. This guy was just, this was a straight out revenge on the billionaire.
Yes, he's Stephen King going for extremely safe target. You know, he's a guy who isolates himself. He taught. You're given the idea of all kinds of racism from the way he talks very patronizingly to the bellhop, and the idea that the billionaire, the successful corporate man, is in fact the real parasite, turns up in this. You know, he sees parasites everywhere, but in fact, the roaches are within him because he is the parasite. Is classic, I will say, S-lib commentary. I'm sure you're typing it in chat, people, but this is Stephen King's S-libbery coming through here, projected fully onto this character and in display. And
Joe,
there is...
Don't tempt the banhammer. I know it. No.
We know those words are unrelated to anything problematic, but YouTube moderators probably do not. And we keep it respectful here. We keep it respectful. Now, there is an interesting thing here that maybe we can say isn't unfair, which is the idea of the sort of cleanliness obsession. And I say this as an interesting aside, and interesting on the level of when I was telling you about VCR prices in the 80s. But actually, a strong sense of disgust is a characteristic of more conservatively minded people, if you are aware of that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, the mysophobia or germophobia is pretty common. Not to this extreme, though, but yeah, it's something that is relatable to a lot of people.
Mm. I attended a Jordan Peterson lecture way back in the day, when he was doing his 12 Rules for Life tour. Don't laugh at me, Chad. It was a good evening, and he gave his lecture, and he ended up talking about this a fair amount, about the idea of order and, as Dr. Pepper said, high disgust sensitivity, yes. And talking effectively how it follows off from that idea of order and being comfortable with categories, inclusions and exclusions. And disgust plays up a sort of innate reaction against a violation of the boundaries. So that is why you'd see this sort of habit more common in more, let's say, traditionally minded people, more conservatively minded or reactionarily. I don't like reactionary. We'll say traditionally minded folk, which I think is quite interesting. So it's not really unfair that they have that trait here. It's just, you know, it's volume turned up by 20 and it's deep fried, if you will.
Oh, crime dramas and horror tend to, in the 80s and 90s, used germophobia as a trope for a lot of their, at least once a season of certain type of shows would have something along those lines. And either death by or a witness is a germaphobe and you can't prove that he was a witness because he'd isolated himself, and how did you see it, that kind of thing. The whole series, Monk, the defective detective, was predicated on germophobia and social anxiety.
That's yeah, I don't think I ever saw that, but that was quite successful, wasn't it? That ran for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it did. Tony Shalhoub was great in that, but yeah they used germophobia effectively in that show. A lot of shows that use it, though, don't. So
it's one of those ones where I think you see, because you can call it a bit of a dividing line that, as we've hinted, does have some root in the ideological bias or ideological standpoint of the creator. You start to see something where those tendencies like germophobia or an obsession with hygiene get criticized, and you it's like, okay, that's maybe the predisposition of the creative elite coming through, or also sort of being uptight is generally portrayed as negative. In fact, the fact that I even call it being uptight is choosing the word that has a negative connotation from the start. Whereas we might say proprietary, polite, etc. Dignified would be another way. It's interesting things that you pick up, and it's easy to sort of absorb a worldview quite passively without paying attention to it. But that is that's a bit of a diversion. I should also note that I think I struggled to find it. Also in the Clive Barker book, Tom Savini talks a fair bit about why he likes to, when he's doing his makeup effects, he likes to work with the real people as much as possible, because once you move away from the real person, the whole show immediately. So he really, you'll remember in Friday the 13th, the woman who gets axed in the head, he uses a real head and a fake axe. And it's always better than a real axe and a fake head. That's kind of a mantra. But in this, because of the nature of the effect, which is that you want the cockroaches bursting out of this character, and it's a creative effect, but you have to use a fake body.
He did do a good job with the life doll, though. He really did.
He did do a really good job. It's just, I mean, your attention is meant to be drawn towards the cockroaches because they are the objects in motion. But unfortunately, I think it's my attention is drawn to the face because that's what we do. We look to faces, and it's an obviously fake head. Unfortunately, it's not terribly done, but it is very quickly seen as fake. Unfortunately, yeah. I'll put in one final observation on this for connections to other things. This death of the villainous thing bursting out of the body of the protagonist. Bear this in mind when we come to watch Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, which is spiritually it's Creepshow 3. Right, just bear that in mind. I should reference this, and then I'll do the old Dr. Evil and Goldmember thing. Oh, I did actually say that, or however Dr. Evil sounds. It's been a long time. Bear it in mind, folks. Bear it in mind. Interesting connections. Murgoot, did you have anything else on this one?
No, this one was very simple, fairly well executed. I know you don't like it, but it hit me. So, on to the epilogue.
The epilogue, indeed. Dun dun dun. Yeah, the epilogue. Wow. Where? Oh, I thought I had that one already. There we. I'm gonna have to go digging for it now.
Turns the page and you find garbage collectors, and one of whom is Tom Savini. They're hauling the trash and they find the Creepshow comic book on the curb.
There we go. Tom Savini on the left, folks.
They start looking through at all the ads and they make a crack about the X-ray X being fake. Charles Atlas bodybuilding course, and then the voodoo doll, which has been shown in between vignettes as having been cut out.
Can I ask? I just want to pause on that. I mean, did we see the voodoo doll mentioned before this bit? Because I was looking for that.
It's not directly mentioned, but when they flip through the comic in between vignettes, it did show the ad and that the mail-in coupon had been cut out.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Oh, I should specify, by the way, it's Tom Savini, our wonderful, charismatic makeup and special effects coordinator, is on the left, and it's Ethan Klein is on the right. Sorry, carry on.
Okay. And then it flashes into the Hopkins house, and Stan, Tom Atkins, is complaining that he's suffering from a stiff neck, and then it starts jostling him more, and it's revealed Billy is shoving a pin into a voodoo doll of his father, and flashes back to Stan clutching his throat in pain, and flashes back to Billy upstairs getting revenge by jabbing that pin in the doll. And then it flashes to the cover next issue of Creepshow with Billy and the doll on the cover. And then Creep is standing there laughing, and then credits roll.
Yes. And we've got that giallo lighting again.
And
I love it.
Just the creepy kid with the smile just inflicting pain on his father.
It's just so delicious that it is Stephen King's son in the story written by Stephen King getting vengeance on his dad. There are fun meta levels to this. The idea that Stephen King, the dad, would be criticizing this horror trash, you know. Oh, I love it. I love it. And the fact that Joe Hill then went on to do his own horror series. You can see it adapted on Netflix as Lock and Key, but you probably shouldn't because it was awful.
The first two graphic novels of Lock and Key were very good, and then it went downhill very quickly.
Yeah, Netflix did not do a good job of it. Although the Joe Hill cameo is quite cool. He is basically a clone of his dad. He plays an ambulance. What did you say? A paramedic. There we go. Right at the end in the final episode. Yeah, I love this. This is a great ending. In terms of a wraparound story, I mean, this is pretty solid, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's been some lovely setup for it. It's concise, and it has a grisly ending. I think it's a winner all round.
So, okay. Super Nanny is calling.
Yes, Super Nanny is indeed calling. I mean, no complaints about it. I like it. There was an interesting comment I'll just get onto before we start doing scores. So start thinking of your scores, folks. But also give us a ranking. I want a ranking if you can do that. So just John's point here. So one problem with story 5 is that they use a roach swarm takeover before we see them explode from the protagonist's prone body. And it's kind of anticlimactic. Yes, they go back and forth. The tone and the pace does dip quite a lot when you go to a suddenly clean room. And then suddenly they come and the pacing does go back and forth and it kind of kills momentum. It also feels like they do want to have it both ways, that it's all in his head and it's real. And I did find it distracting as well. It just wasn't done consistently. It was not. You can be ambiguous, and that's fine. But if you're also, it's 100% this, and then no, it's definitely the other thing, that just gives you kind of whiplash. So, yeah, I think it's a fair point, John. Very, very good call. We will stay on Super Nanny's good side. But we won't tempt it. We'll get into it. So, Murgoot, would you like to give your score and ranking, please?
Frame story, I'll give a solid 9. I really enjoyed it. It does set things up just like an EC Comics would, and the ending is satisfying. Plus the humorous turn of Tom Savini as the garbage man. Father's Day, I'd give a solid 8. It's well done. It does sort of drag, but it successfully concludes and it wraps up well. Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, I'd give a 6 just because it's a poor ripoff of Color Out of Space. Something to Tide You Over, I'll give a 7. It drags. Leslie Nielsen is great in everything he's in, but the pacing on this just was not good at all. And makeup at the end was kind of lackluster. Figure Fluffy and the Cockroaches took all the budget.
Yeah.
The Crate, I give a solid 10. And it's my favorite of the lot. Fluffy is excellent. Hal Holbrook is always good. Adrienne Barbeau played a good evil woman.
Oh, she was so much fun.
And then Fluffy again is excellent. Tom Savini did a great job as his first animatronic. They're creeping up on you. I'll give an 8 just because it is effective for me. And overall score is an 8. Good, solid 8.
Yeah. Nice. I think that's fair. Do you, with the wraparound story, do you feel like you want them to be their own thing, or are you happy with them to be quite a minimal thing just to basically contain all the other vignettes?
I'm very satisfied with it as a frame story. I mean, it's too short and sweet for a full episode on its own, but as an introduction to the comic book feel, and then the outro of the gory ending at the end to close out the book gives the right feel to it.
Yeah, that's right. At this phase of horror anthologies, short and sweet, is grand. The wraparound story does not need to be intense. This is a lot more minimal than, Asylum, which we'll have watched. Yeah. So overall, it was an 8, was it?
Yes.
Excellent. I should point out I got a score from TCG, and his takeaway was, solid 8 out of 12 burgers. Some good stories, some better than others. Lots of juicy gore, which I expect for that time. And I think because it was a Romero work. So he was happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, I probably won't give an individual score per story, but for ranking, I really like the wraparound at this phase. It does the job very well. So for this style, it's a quality wraparound story, short and sweet, an interesting and novel presentation of the stories. And we got an order there. I'll just get that up while I do mine. So for the order of the stories, you're probably not going to be surprised. The Crate is number 1 for me. Then I would put Father's Day second. That's probably the more controversial one, followed by Something to Tide You Over. I love those Dutch angles. I love the performances. I love the design. There was some good gore in it. But the pacing is, I think, the pacing on a lot of these is just a bit drawn out. They could all be, so many of them could be 2 minutes shorter. And for 5 stories, that saves you 10 minutes, or I'd cut one out. So my order of preference, The Crate, Father's Day, Something to Tide You Over. With a bit of a grumble, I'd probably go for They're Creeping Up on You. And then Geordie Verrill, 4th. Even though I think They're Creeping Up on You is maybe a bit meaner. So yeah, not too much disagreement here. I think everyone's kind of unified, which is quite nice. It's really just me simping for Father's Day that's maybe throwing it off. I think we have a score, a 9 from John Garris. Yes. For a score overall, I'm voting it up a fair bit more because of how gorgeous it is, basically. And I thought the music was pretty well done. Not obtrusive, not getting in the way. Really added to the atmosphere. And because of all the impact it had on later horror, I'm also going to bump it up an extra burger. Got to come down, I think, a quite generous 9. 9.5, maybe. This is, I thought I would be maybe a little bored rewatching this. No, loved it. It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous horror movie. It's creative. And I like the wraparound.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we got a 9 there. Just to summarize, I've got a 9, an 8. 8 from you, 8 from TCG, another 9. 8 out of 12 for the Henry. Let's see. Yeah. Could you show this to kids? Maybe. It's not super sweary. The gore, they could look away. That's you can. If it's not mean about it, I think kids can see it quite early because,
And no nudity either.
No nudity. Yeah, they'll look away from the violence when it gets mega scary. Maybe that's a nice thing. It's like The Omen. The Omen. There's no bubbins. There's no swearing. There's just good old-fashioned horrific violence. And if you're a young kid, you covered your eyes in time. So there you go. You heard it from here. Your 7-year-old can see The Omen. I saw it at 9. I turned out okay. Shush now. Baldwin going in with a 9. You stuck with us all the way, Baldwin. Good on you. Good on you. Thanks for joining us. So at 8.5, 9, we're pretty unified here. This is an 8.5 to 9. It's got some high points, but it's very uneven. It's probably too long. Probably about 20 minutes too long. But yeah, it's got a heckin' lot of rewatchability. My goodness. Heck of a rewatchability on this. Probably about my 5th time seeing it. Oh, and we got an order from Mima here. Mima's order. Yep, the crate Father's Day. Hey, Mima agrees with me. Father's Day number 2. Nice. Tide You Over, Weeds, Wraparound. Yeah, Geordie Verrill behind the wraparound. Yes. Geordie Verrill could have been kicked off. It kills the pacing, doesn't it? It's a very slow movie slow story after Father's Day. Yeah, I'd probably cut it out as well. Anyway, that is everything on Creepshow, folks. Will we do Creepshow 2? I cannot promise that. But we've covered this, and I hope you appreciate it. I hope some of that trivia and insight has made you like this a little bit more. A lot of you, I think they're saying this is like Giallo, is not going to surprise you. I throw it in anyway. I try not to repeat myself too much. And I see there's good feedback on that. Yes, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to you being on next week. So what I can do is give you the horror homework, folks. We are starting our psychological horror part 2 arc next week. And I'm just going to give you as many as I can so you can have advance warning. So next week, we're going to be covering a wonderful little modern film, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. And we've got years coming on for that. That is a great film. I think you really like it. We're then shaking up quite a lot. The week after, so the 17th, we're covering Das Experiment from Oliver Hirschspiegel. So that is a German movie. Try and watch it in German with subtitles if you can. And that is based around a fictional retelling of the Stanford Prison Experiment. And because it's based around the Stanford Prison Experiment, I've got Josh from Lotus Eaters coming on. I'm looking forward to him being a first-time guest. And the week after that, Harry demanded that we cover Kill List. And who am I to refuse Harry? So he'll be coming on after that. There is a blank space for the end of August. So I'm probably going to do a bit of a poll. And chat, you suggest me the psychological horror you'd like to cover. So in a comment on this stream would be amazing, but on the community post is fine. Give me inspiration for that 4th psychological horror, because August this time has 5 Thursdays. So just in case you didn't get that, that is The Autopsy of Jane Doe, Autopsy of Jane Doe, Das Experiment, and Kill List. So I think you will enjoy those. Those are really good. I'm treating you this time for August. All right, folks, that is everything from me. We're staying on the right side of Super Nanny. Massive thanks, Murgoot.
And thank you for having me.
No worries, absolute pleasure. You are my go-to guy for horror anthologies, and I like it's good vibes. It's good vibes. And chat, thanks to you as well. I'm nice and lively today. I like to see it. And if anyone came over from Poe, who was had to stream at the same time, hello Poe viewers. We're all Poe appreciators around here as well. And anyone watching on the replay who's made it this far, kudos to you as well. All right, folks, that is the horror homework. That is Creepshow covered, and we are on the right side of Super Nanny, signing off before 2.5 hours. And I'm waiting for those comments. This isn't the film. I'm going to sign off before those comments go in. All right, folks. That is everything from me. Thanks, Jill. And I'll sign off with thanks, Jill. Cheers. And hashtag Shill Gang.